I tracked my husband's phone to surprise him on his business trip. Instead, I found a house key that wasn't mine, and a stroller that definitely wasn't ours. My name is Melissa Ortiz. I'm 31 years old. And for 3 years, I thought my husband David traveled for work twice a month because his job demanded it. I was wrong. It demanded nothing. He built that lie himself. It was our anniversary weekend. David told me he had a work trip in Denver, last minute, unavoidable. He was so sorry. I decided to surprise him. I booked a flight behind his back, packed a bag, and used Find My iPhone to get his hotel address so I could show up at his door with flowers. Except when I opened the app, his location wasn't a hotel. It was a residential address. 15 minutes from our own house. I stared at the screen for a long time. Told myself there had to be an explanation. A coworker's place. A last-minute meeting. I drove there anyway. It was a small blue house with a porch swing and a child's bike leaning against the steps. My stomach dropped before I even parked the car. I sat outside for 20 minutes, just watching. Then the front door opened. And David walked out, holding a diaper bag, followed by a woman I had never seen in my life, carrying a baby that looked exactly like him. Before I tell you what happened when I got out of my car and walked up that driveway, tell me something. Have you ever had a gut feeling that turned out to be worse than you imagined? Comment yes below if you have. I want to know how many of us have lived this exact moment. Because what I found out over the next 72 hours didn't just end my marriage. It ended with David standing in a courtroom and a truth about his business trips that had been hiding in plain sight for 3 entire years. Stay with me. Because the 4 words that woman said to me on that porch are something I will never forget as long as I live. A woman. A baby. A house I had never known existed. 15 minutes from my own front door. I got out of the car. My legs barely worked. David saw me and froze completely, the diaper bag still hanging from his shoulder. Melissa, he said. What are you doing here? Not, who is this? Not, this isn't what it looks like. Just, what are you doing here? Like I was the one who wasn't supposed to be there. The woman looked between us, confused at first. Then something shifted in her face. She looked at David and asked quietly, is this her? Is this the ex-wife you told me about? Ex-wife. I had been married to this man for 6 years. We were still married. There was no ex about it. I asked her name. She said Kayla. I asked how long she'd known David. She said 2 years. I asked about the baby. That's our son, she said. He's 8 months old. I felt the ground actually tilt beneath me. David finally spoke. He said it wasn't what it looked like, that he could explain everything, that I needed to calm down before I said something I'd regret in front of the baby. I didn't calm down. I did something else instead. I pulled out my phone, opened our shared banking app, and started screenshotting every single transaction from the last 3 years. Hotel charges that were never hotels, gas charges near an address I'd never known, a life insurance policy update I'd never approved. David's face changed when he realized what I was doing. Because he knew exactly what those records were going to show. 3 years of transactions. And every single one of them told a story David never thought I'd read. I drove straight to a hotel that night, sat on the edge of the bed, and went through everything with shaking hands. A storage unit rental, paid monthly, that I never knew existed. A separate phone plan, billed quietly to a business account he managed. And the address on that plan, the same blue house with the porch swing. I called a divorce attorney the next morning. Her name was Patricia Adams, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. If he's been maintaining a second household using marital funds, she told me, that changes everything about how this settlement works. 2 days later, my attorney's investigator found something that made my stomach turn even harder. David hadn't just been unfaithful. He had opened a second life insurance policy 18 months earlier, and Kayla was listed as the primary beneficiary. Not me. Her. He had also quietly transferred funds from our joint savings into an account solely in his name, $12,000 over the past year, labeled in his records as business development. There was no business. There was a woman, a baby, and a house he'd been slowly building a second life inside of, funded by the exact same paycheck he brought home to me every single month. I thought about every work trip, every late-night phone call he took in the garage. Every time I'd apologize to him for feeling suspicious, told myself I was being paranoid, that I trusted him too much to ever doubt him. He hadn't just lied to me for 3 years. He had let me apologize for noticing. I called Patricia back and told her I wanted everything documented. Every transaction. Every message. Every receipt. Because I was done being the only one in that marriage who didn't know the truth. Every transaction. Every message. Every receipt. That's what I handed my attorney 3 weeks later, and it was more than enough. David tried to reach me a dozen times. Texts, calls, one attempt to show up at my sister's house where I was staying. I didn't respond to any of it. Everything went through Patricia now. His lawyer tried to argue the second household was a private matter that shouldn't affect the divorce settlement. Patricia disagreed, and she had the paperwork to prove it. Marital funds, she argued, had directly financed his affair, the storage unit, the phone plan, the house payments Kayla later admitted David had been quietly covering. At the settlement hearing, David sat across the table from me for the first time in a month. He looked tired. Smaller than I remembered him. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "I just didn't know how to end things without losing everything." I looked at him and said the only thing I had left. "You didn't lose everything, David. You built a second life and let me pay for half of it without even knowing I was in the room." His lawyer tried to interject. Patricia cut him off with a single sentence, sliding a folder across the table, the life insurance documents, the transfer records, all of it laid out in black and white. David's face went pale. He hadn't realized how much we already knew. The judge reviewed everything and ruled decisively. I would retain the house. Half of everything in the account he'd tried to quietly siphon funds from. And full reimbursement for the funds diverted toward his second household, backdated 18 months. David left that courtroom with far less than he thought he was walking in with. But what happened 3 weeks later is the part of this story I still think about the most. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. It was Kayla. I almost didn't answer. But something told me I needed to hear what she had to say. She told me she hadn't known about me until the day I showed up at her porch. David had told her he was divorced, that his ex-wife was unstable and controlling, that he'd left me over a year ago. She had believed him completely, the same way I had believed his business trips for 3 straight years. We were both lied to by the same man, in 2 different houses, 15 minutes apart. I won't pretend that call didn't hurt in a strange new way. But it also gave me something I didn't expect. Clarity. David hadn't just betrayed one woman. He had built an entire architecture of lies, one for each of us, and maintained both of them for years without either of us noticing the cracks. The divorce was finalized 4 months after that day on the porch. I kept the house. I started therapy, something I'd avoided for years because David always made me feel like needing help meant something was wrong with me. It didn't. It just meant I'd spent 3 years married to someone who needed me to doubt myself more than he needed to tell me the truth. Here's what I carry with me now. A gut feeling is not paranoia. It's information your mind has already processed before your heart is ready to accept it. If something feels wrong for long enough, it usually is. I don't check locations to catch anyone anymore. I check in with myself instead, because that's the person I stopped listening to for 3 years, and I'm never doing that again. If this story reached you tonight, hit subscribe. We share a new true story every week. And tell me honestly in the comments, would you have confronted them right there on the porch, or walked away and built your case quietly like I did? I read every single comment. I'll be there. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next story.